Managers of Reddit, what made you fire an employee on their first day? Not a manager, but was training a new guy on a plastic bag cutting machine. The kind of bags used for products like fiberglass, peat moss, or salt. These machines sometimes have plastic build-up around the sealers, and when this happens the machine needs to be stopped and cleaned. Usually this only takes a minute. Power off, engage kill switch, remove excess plastic, change Teflon strip if necessary, disengage kill switch, then power back on. This was explained multiple times. Twice on the first night, he disengaged the kill switch and started the machine while I was working on it. Could have had my fingers crushed, or had it clamp on the tools I was using and send shattered pieces everywhere. Lucky for me the machine starts to vibrate a second before it actually starts, and I was able to pull away quickly enough both times. I stopped the machine, grabbed my manager and my union rep, explained what happened, and he was gone in 5 minutes. Frick him. We had an intern one semester. He was handed a large bundle of zip-tied cables and asked to cut them apart and separate them. He literally cut the entire bundle in half rather than cut the zip ties to separate them. Lost $2,000 worth of cables. Fired that day. The techie in me just had an aneurysm. Undisclosed charge for beating up his old manager, giving her a broken nose and fractured eye socket, for not approving a holiday request. We were a little late with his background check, but he'd done really well on the interview and completed training without an issue. First full day on the job he comes in and I give him the tour and introduce him to his team, and I instantly get the feeling that he's being shifty. Turns out not 20 minutes before his first shift he got out of his car at a traffic light and screamed at another driver who didn't go through an amber light. Imagine his surprise to see it was our reception desk security guard. Apparently he was really aggressive and threatened to slash his tires if he saw that car again. 2 hours later, and about 10 minutes after I found out about that morning, his background checks come back. I had an employee call off on her first scheduled day. On her second scheduled day, she showed up 2 hours late. This was a sub shop. We weren't open yet, but we had been and doing prep, baking bread, and building our sub trays for catering orders. We told her that this wasn't going to work out and she got pee. She started yelling that we were all xenophobic buttholes, and as she stormed out the door, she knocked over stacks of sub trays. We lost 15 trays to her tantrum. My boss went running out the door after her, and the girl's boyfriend got out of the car and reached behind his back swearing and telling my female boss that if she keeps stepping to them that he would stop her good. We are pretty sure that he had a gun. My boss checked the license plate and came back in. We had all of this girl's information, address, phone, social security, etc. from the paperwork, so with that and the security footage of her destroying the trays, we were able to press charges for the damage. I'm not the manager in the story, but I was there for part of it. Dude gets hired, starts training. During training, GM instructs him to take out the trash. He refuses, gets into an argument. Apparently, he didn't know that he was arguing with the GM despite the big, fancy name tag with general manager printed in block letters on it. Gets sent home. For some reason, he still comes in the next day, smelling of alcohol. He grabs food, this is a restaurant, without paying, right in front of everyone, including a manager. He then proceeds to start coming at a server because they couldn't tell him where the takeout silverware was. Not the server's job. This evolves into a literal fight and the police get called. We never saw him again after that. This was all before his first actual day of work. I'm a bar and restaurant manager. One day the new kitchen porter walked through the front entrance carrying a huge bag of cheese over his shoulder, which the head chef had told him to pick up. He walked through the restaurant and, right in front of customers, launched it through the hatch in the kitchen, flying through the air as everyone just watched open-mouthed. The huge bag of cheese landed hard in the deep fat fryer. The chef working near it got scalded in hot oil and had to go to A&E. He's the only person I've sacked on their first day. I'm mostly pretty chill, but he was just a walking health and safety nightmare. Even after everything that happened, he still couldn't accept responsibility or apologize to the chef he hurt. He's the only person I've let go without a hint of remorse or sadness. The safety of your team always comes first. Chief officer of a merchant vessel here. Technically, second in command of the ship after the captain. A seaman joined our ship while our vessel was berthed in Mobile, Alabama. He was carrying a plastic water bottle during familiarization rounds on deck with the third officer, and when it was empty proceeded to throw the bottle overboard. My Russian captain saw this, calmly asked me to call the seaman to his office, gave back all his documents, asked the agent to book him a flight back to where he came from. All of this happened in a span of 3 hours. That was very, very nice of the captain, both giving him a flight back and allowing him to disembark via the gangway. He couldn't tie an apron on. He couldn't count change. Asked him to unpack boxes and found him sitting on the floor just staring at them. It wasn't so much firing as a mutual "this isn't going to work" after 4 hours. I need to know why he was staring at the boxes. 2 stand out. He was laughing at the ice bin. Admitted he was tripping balls. We laughed. I said, "You can't work here like that." We laughed. He said, "Yeah, I know." So that was fun. She stuffed all the 5s from a fresh register, meaning I knew exactly how many 5s were supposed to be there, in her bra, assuming everyone who was totally watching wasn't paying attention. Nobody was gonna shake her down and the police were busy. She made $75 for roughly 30 minutes of training. I think she kinda fired herself. She didn't show up at all in an actual work capacity. Her first non-training shift was opening on a Saturday. This place opened at 5:30 AM. So me, excited to sleep in because I opened MF, which was waking up at 3 AM to make it, got woken up at 5:30 on the dot because obviously clients called immediately. Whatever, maybe something happened. It sucked for me and the people trying to get in early morning workouts, but I made it there and had it covered. The problem was when I tried to talk to her about it, she didn't even let me get started. She immediately started yelling at me that I didn't give her enough space for her personal issues or something like that. And then she emailed the VP of the company about how awful I was. I wouldn't have fired her for that. I tried to talk to her about it to find out why it happened, but I had no chance at all. She just went all out scorched earth. All she got was being fired from a person above me. She started a fight with another employee. The other employee, the fiance of her baby daddy. This man literally got a job for his girlfriend and his side chick for the same position, same location, and same schedule. I don't know what became of that situation, but I had to break them up and then call the police when the side chick tried to run the fiance down in the parking lot and wrecked 3 cars in the process, and then give a police report for that whole dang thing. I'm so glad I don't work security anymore. I want those years of my life back. This man literally got a job for his girlfriend and his side chick for the same position, same location, and same schedule. Some people just want to watch the world burn. Got through training, month long, and the guy had his first day on the floor. He was supposed to be setting up his computer how he liked it. I walked by because he looked like he was struggling. I helped him out and walked him through one of the programs and let him know it was okay to flag me down if he needed help. I proceed to help out 3 others, then circle back to him. No progress made. This was 20 minutes later. I walk him through some other setup. This is all from written instruction from a manual. I go and help a few more people. Come back to see yet again no progress. I ask him what kind of issue he is having with the instructions. Come to find out he can't read English. All of our instructions and guides are only in writing, in English. It's a requirement on the job interview. I guess someone walked him through that too. I wanna know how he passed a month's training not being able to read English. Not a manager, but saw this happen a couple of weeks ago. The local pizza place is frequent visit for my friends and I. They know our names and usual orders. Nice small town joint. New girl started working there as a cashier. Went up to the counter to get a few pies we had ordered an hour earlier. We were told 30 minutes. Turns out she had taken the order down over the phone and just didn't tell the cooks. Owner, who was nearby, said sorry about that, palapata, come back in 20. No big deal. Came back in 20 minutes and the new girl is doing dishes by hand. The pizzas are under a warmer. With her dirty soapy hands and no tray, she grabs my pizzas and throws them into a box in front of the owner. Little suds and dishwater on the food. They fired her that instant. Showed up 45 minutes late and said he lost his uniform. Then he revealed he planned on wearing his worn out South Park t-shirt and shorts. Going on down to the unemployment office. Our company photographed vehicles for dealerships so they could be posted online. We had pretty much one requirement. You had to be able to drive a manual. The company would train a person on everything else. A new hire lied on their application about being able to drive a manual. They thought they could learn on the job. It took the manager training him about 30 seconds to realize how much of liability he was going to be as soon as he tried to move a manual car. We let him go on the spot. I did tell him that if he went and fully learned and came back and proved it to me, he could have his job back. He texted 2 days later letting me know he just couldn't get the hang of it. Kitchen manager here. Had a grill cook working his first day. I walk around the corner to see that he had passed out in the broiler grill while assembling it. Woke him up from his nap to tell him he could leave for the day. Turns out this dude liked H. I witnessed someone get rejects before the interview even started. I was in the waiting area of a car dealership's service center waiting for my car. The waiting area was right next to all the offices for the managers, sales guys, etc. So there's a young guy, early 20s, comes in, wearing dirty sneakers, khakis, and an untucked button-up shirt. Checks in with the receptionist that he's here for an interview. Manager comes out, greets him and says, "You're XXX, right?" Kid confirms. Manager then confirms that he told the kid, when he applied, that he had to dress professional, not sneakers, tie required, shirt tucked, etc. Kid's like, "Yeah, I remembered," but figured it didn't really matter for just the interview. Manager basically said, "Yeah, if you can't follow basic, direct instructions for an interview, this isn't going to work out," and told him to go home. This all happened in the waiting area. Manager didn't even bring him into the office. Kid was like, "Are you serious?" Then had to stand there awkwardly waiting for his ride to come back and pick him up. I remember working in a call center and something similar happened. Saw someone I used to go to school with come in for an interview in a tracksuit. The manager interviewing them had the whole thing over and done within about 2 minutes. As he was leading them out of the door, he just casually said, "Word of advice, buy a suit," and closed the door on them. Work and wireless. Hired this guy who had a good resume and sales experience. Leave work, get a call from corporate saying one of our devices is out of its allowed region. Track it down. This guy borrowed a phone because we didn't let him off early enough to pay his bill. I was a school administrator for a K-12 school. Had a new substitute teacher for a middle school class. She was an older lady, very old school elegant. I'm in the hall and suddenly a class full of 6th graders are running out of the classroom. I go busting in there expecting a brawl or a gun or something. Instead, the substitute is standing at the front of the room in a pool of poo. She apologized and said her stomach was bothering her. She walked out of the room and down the hall leaving puddles of poo behind her. I call the custodian and we start with the kitty litter. Thinking my day could only get better, I was shocked when a couple of hours later a student came running down the hall to get me. I follow them to her classroom and there is the sub again, standing in her own poo. Again. The admin assistant had told her earlier that of course she could come back after she got cleaned up. I gently asked her to leave and told her we wouldn't be needing her again. So, the custodian and I cleaned everything up again. When I got home, my wife asked me how my day was and didn't understand when I lost it after telling her it had been a crappy day. That's horrific. But at some point you need to settle for the indignity of an adult diaper over the shame of soiling yourself in public. What was she even thinking? My partner and I were training a security guard for one of the huge sites that we had. Everyone gets a work phone during the shift to use a live track system and report every so often. After it gets dark, me and my partner lose track of this guy on this. We tried calling him but he wouldn't answer. After about 3 hours we found him on the property's playground swings arguing with his girlfriend, or ex, on the work phone. Apparently he didn't have a phone of his own, so he took this chance to socialize. On training day, he couldn't believe that he was getting fired. We hired an external supervisor. On orientation day, he was an hour late from lunch. He checked in, said sorry I'm late, then proceeds to inform me he was going to the restroom. He had a 72-minute poop. We decided he was a poor fit for our corporate culture. He had a 72-minute poop. I know the thing is to poop at work cause the boss makes $1 while you make a dime. But the idea isn't to stay in there until you have made as many dollars as the boss earns during his normal length poo. Not a manager, but on this woman's first day she was clearly very stressed and not getting the responsibilities. She went to lunch and never came back. My boss called her and fired her, but it was clear she ghosted without even quitting. At a different job, this guy came to work on his third day in jeans and a hoodie. We were business casual, but not that casual. An hour and he said he forgot something in his car and never came back. Same deal. Fired for job abandonment. She arrived 2.5 hours late. I had to wake her up because she forgot to set her alarm. She arrived high to work. To top it off, she was gender-based and harassed a co-worker by asking her for a naked photo. She was out of a job by the end of the day. A fresh graduate who reported directly to me said to me in the most condescending tone ever, "It's important to understand stereotypes. For example, Spanish people are very lazy, so they are never going to work as hard, and we have to understand it and treat them that way." Note, I, his boss, am Spanish. I have been a fast food manager a long time, so I have hired and fired a ton of people. Guy within 90 minutes of starting just started eating food off the cook's line. I walked around the corner, he just looks at me and takes a bite out of a chicken strip. I am not a big yeller, but I straight up ejected that dude like a baseball umpire. That's it, you're outta here. And this is why I could never have that job. I wasn't a manager, but a supervisor at the time. Dude's second day on the job. He called in running late from his bartending job. Shows up at the job, grocery store third shift, so amazingly drunk that he could barely stand. He was upstairs in the bathroom shirtless and covered in puke. I called a co-worker in to help me convince him to get a ride home. He refused to get a ride. He kept saying how he's got a kid for about 30 minutes. I finally told him if he doesn't get a ride home immediately with my co-worker, then I'm calling the cops. My co-worker apparently held him back from fighting me in the parking lot. The guy still holds a grudge against me. Oh yeah, not only was he going to drive home, but on a moped. Frick that guy. Semi-NSW. Not first day, but first day without a trainer accompanying them. He managed crash a patrol car. That alone wouldn't necessarily have gotten them fired. The fact that it was into a school bus might not have done it if there were extenuating circumstances, since damage really was minor and no injuries sustained by anyone on the bus. The fact his girlfriend was in the squad car might not have done it if he had bothered to get permission. However, since there was no permission, we moved from might not to probably so. The fact that both the interior and exterior dashcam managed to accidentally get turned off, almost impossible to do by accident, but his body cam managed to, most likely, accidentally getting turned on though, guaranteed it. The only footage taken from that cam that night was of the top of his girlfriend's head rapidly and repeatedly entering and exiting the camera's field of vision. So close that you could see details that usually you'd never be able to see on a person's scalp, right up until impact caused the lens to shatter against her hair tie. The pictures some of the kids on the bus managed to get were just the icing on the cake at that point. Needless to say, at that point, I called my boss and got permission from my boss to end both a shift and a career that night. Became kind of an unofficial training point after that. No celebratory Bravo Juliets in the squad car. Why in the ever-loving frick would anyone ever think that was a good idea? How about a little switch up? I fired a guy on my first day. I got a job as a shipping and receiving manager for a small warehouse. I had 3 people working for me. I was told in the morning to keep an eye on one of them because they like to drink on the job. Sure enough, this guy ranked off beer after lunch and was drunk off his butt. The branch manager told me I had to fire him, so I did. He did not take it well. It was one of the most awkward moments of my life. Seems kinda messed up the branch manager didn't do it considering they had worked together for 5+ years and I only knew the poor guy for a few hours. I suspect you were hired, at least in part, specifically so branch manager didn't have to fire his friend himself. Not a manager but an employee. I caught my manager masturbating in the office and he immediately fired me and personally shooed me off the office grounds. Gutted since it was quite a high paying job and let's just say I cannot recover from that incident. For those asking why I didn't report it for unlawful termination, basically I was gullible last time, not knowing how to counter this situation, so I was like frick it, but I don't regret it. At least I have a better job now. What a W. Holy crap. This is my backup account which I hardly use and it gets a gold after 3 years of trying. Customary thank you kind stanger. My uncle lost a job 5 minutes in. He drove up and parked outside. Went in to do induction and paperwork. Turns out he parked on a hill and forgot to put the handbrake on in his car. It rolled into the boss nice, shiny, 5-day-old Rolls Royce. He was asked to leave pretty fast after that. I should mention it was a driving based job, so showing that he could actually drive and park sensibly was kinda important. Not a manager but an employee who saw it all and was slightly involved. I had a front of house job a few months ago for a brand new performance arts center, and since it was a brand new establishment, they did training in a boardroom with 30+ employees. One dude was just not cooperating. He kept falling asleep, moving around, and he argued about the gender-based harassment regulations. The manager said there should not be anything risque posted inside your lockers because it's a common locker room and you gotta be respectful. He got upset and started a whole tirade about how it's his locker and no one should get a say on what he puts on or in it. He noticed halfway through training that he was probably on thin ice and tried to save his hide. He also noticed that I would fidget constantly, stand up to use the restroom, or do little hand aerobics with my pen or stare into space for minutes on end. I have ADD and had already told the trainers when I noticed we'd be sitting for 8 hours, so they turned a blind eye to my fidgeting. When they confronted him about his behavior, he dragged me into the issue by saying that if he was to be reprimanded then I should be too for being a distraction to my training. He was fired before his first day of work. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.